Hello students, welcome to your video for lesson 9.1c, our last video in lesson 9.1 before we will move on to other things. In this video we're just going to briefly review evaluating algebraic expressions when we're given a specific value for a variable. And our connection, which is not actually in your homework problems on your worksheet for tomorrow, but we're connecting this back to square roots so we can have algebraic expressions underneath a square root where we have to evaluate the algebraic expression and then take the square root of it to find our answer. So if we just start with the directions here or our instructions, we're asked to take these three algebraic expressions and we're asked to evaluate them when x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 2. So when we're given these values for our variables, x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 2, the first thing that we're going to want to do when we evaluate these expressions is basically replace these variables here in our expression with the values we are told they're equal to. Okay, so in this case, this problem is going to become 7 times, in parentheses, 2 times 4 minus 3 times 2. Okay, and now this is simply a question of the order of operations, right? What should we be doing first if we're trying to do this math right here? Well, the order of operations, remember, starts with grouping symbols, so we'll start in the parentheses. And inside the parentheses, I see 2 multiplication signs and 1 subtraction sign. Do I do the multiplication first or the subtraction first? Well, according to the order of operations, I do the multiplication first, okay? So I do 2 multiplied by 4, which is 8. Okay, so it's still 7 times, and then in my parentheses, it's going to become 8 minus 3 times 2, which is 6. Okay, so I do my multiplying. Now I'm going to do my subtraction. So in the parentheses, 8 minus 6 becomes 2. So I'm simply left with, once I've evaluated my parentheses, with 7 times 2. 7 times 2 is 14. Okay, so the value of this expression, 7 times 2x minus 3y, for these particular values is 14. Okay, that's my final answer right there for this particular expression. Now I'm going to do a very similar thing here with this expression. This one has a couple more pieces that are just numbers instead of variables. But if I replace this variable y with a letter 2, or sorry, not a letter 2, number 2, and this variable x with the number 4, my expression is going to say 5 plus 10 times 2 minus 7 minus 4. Okay, and then this again is just order of operations, right? And I see 1 addition sign, 2 subtraction signs, and 1 multiplication sign. The first thing I'm supposed to do in terms of order of operations is multiply. So it becomes 5 plus 20 minus 7 minus 4, okay? And then when I have just addition and subtraction left, I don't have to do the addition first, even though in this case I will, because I'm just going to work left to right across this problem. 5 plus 20 is 25, right? 25 minus 7. 25 minus 7 is 18. 18 minus 4 is 14. So interesting enough, this expression is also equal to 14 when x is 4 and y is 2. I promise the answer will not always be 14. Okay, but in that case it is. So I'm just replacing my variables with the values I'm given. Here x equals 4, here y equals 2. And I'm just then doing order of operations math. Okay? Now, when we get to one where the entire expression is under a square root, we need to think of that square root symbol like a grouping symbol. Okay? The square root symbol or the radical symbol groups all of that stuff underneath it together, and it makes me do all of that math first. Okay, so I'm going to do the entire expression first, and then I'm going to put a square root symbol over it, and we'll see what we're left with. Okay, so if I start by just replacing my values again, replacing my variables with their values, underneath the square root it says -2 times, in parentheses, my y value is 2 minus 7 times 4 minus 6. Okay, and now I have grouping symbols here as well, so I need to deal with that first, right? In the parentheses, I see 2 subtraction signs and 1 multiplication sign. According to the order of operations, I need to multiply first before I subtract, so this becomes -2 times 2 minus 28 minus 6. Okay, and then I'm going to just do my subtraction that's inside of those parentheses. And I think I'm going to end up with -2 times, let's see, 2 minus 28. 2 take away 28 means I'm going into the negative, and I'm down 26, -26. And then I take away 6 more, which makes me go more negative. So -26, take away 6 more leaves me -32. Okay, let me stretch this out just a little bit here. Okay, so now I have this, right? And remember, all of this is still underneath this square root sign. Okay, so all of these expressions are still technically under these square root signs. So you can put them back on here if you want. Square root of that, square root of this, and then square root of this. Okay, and now I'm at the point where I can just do a little bit of math here. A -2 times a -32. Negative times another negative makes a positive. Okay, and the 2 times 32 is 64. So I end up with 64. And that, of course, is still underneath the square root symbol. So my expression is equal to the square root of 64. Okay, now, the square root of 64, I believe, is something that we know. It's something in our list. But it is important to remember from our last video that when we end up with a square root of 64, we might have 2 different options, right? We might have positive or negative option. So when I do the square root of 64, I know that those 2 options, well, according to my calculator or my list, the square root of 64 is 8. And then I just know that I have this other option, 8 or -8. Okay? So that expression, the square root of -2 times y minus 7x minus 6 is equal to 8 or -8. I have the positive, negative options because of that square root symbol. Okay, like I mentioned, there are not any of these square root ones in your homework, but they may show up on a test or quiz as a bonus question. If you have questions or concerns about evaluating algebraic expressions given certain values for the variables, please reach out to me somehow. Email, phone, or Zoom office hours all work great. Otherwise, that's all I have for you for today, and we'll talk to you soon.